You can call or text. We've already got a couple of text messages, which I appreciate. We'll get to that in just a second. You can call or text 949-542-6241. 949-542-6241. Call or text. I'm seeing, or you can leave them in the live YouTube chat if you're joining us live. I see a couple of questions. This is kind of a listener question, but it's basically the big debate. And it's a nice segue from what I was saying about the defense. And it's about Vontaze Burfict. And you know what? Before we get to Vontaze Burfict, we're getting a call on our OBI line, so let's get to that. Hi, it's the Orange and Black Insider. Who's this?
John from Kentucky. How you doing?
Hey, John. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Yeah. You said go ahead and call in, so I went ahead and grabbed the phone. Yeah, you're talking about Burfict just now. It's a good thing that he's coming back, but I've noticed that some people in the chat are a little concerned because, officials are really cracking down on players, on physical players, to say the least. And that could be an issue with Burfict. But I'd still much rather have him back than not have him, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad, even though I was kind of starting to talk about it, I'm glad you called in and are talking about Vontaze Burfict, because that's where I was going. Like you said, a lot of people in the live YouTube chat are talking about Vontaze Burfict and, can he turn things around for the Cincinnati Bengals defense? Like I said, I'm worried, John, a little bit about the sustainability of the Bengals' path of winning. And what I mean by that is the 28 points given up per game, the lack of a turnover forced the last 2 weeks. And, these are things that the big plays, the turnovers, these are things that Terrell Austin has preached to this defense. And it worked the first couple of weeks, but it has not been working since, and against two of the better quarterbacks in the league, in Cam Newton and Matt Ryan. Now, I got to say this, and I don't want to – I know you're a big critic of Dre Kirkpatrick. There have been a handful of instances where Dre Kirkpatrick could have nabbed an interception. Other guys too. Jesse Bates had his hands on a couple. They've had some opportunities that they have not capitalized on. But it's the pass rush has been feast or famine a little bit, as have the turnovers. So I'm just a little worried about that. No, I think Burfict is a spark plug. I think he's a guy that can help things, but I don't think he's an absolute cure-all to every single issue. The Bengals, consistently stopping the run, getting off the field on third down. That was another issue I haven't even brought up yet. The Bengals defense is basically the worst in the league in getting off of the field on third down. I think they were around 40+% going into last week, and they let up like 70-something%. So, about Burfict, I'm glad he's coming back. I think he's going to make a difference. How big of one, I'm not sure. How about you, John?
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I think he'll definitely help against the run. We really struggled with Carolina running the ball. So I think Burfict helps there. However, against your elite quarterbacks, the pass, there was one pass this past weekend against Dre Kirkpatrick where Matt Ryan just totally faked him out. It was almost embarrassing, and I think it went right for a touchdown. And if it didn't, it went down to the 1 yard line, and I just thought, my gosh, it's just a typical Dre Kirkpatrick defensive play here. Now, Dre does frustrate receivers. The problem is he gives up too many big plays, and he just doesn't get turnovers like we wish that he could. And I'm concerned, when we face Kansas City at Kansas City, Josh Mahomes, if he's watching any film of the Bengals at all, he's bound to be noticing Kirkpatrick, and I would think Mahomes would be very confident in passing against him. What would you think?
Yeah, the other thing that we have to take into consideration is William Jackson has not played up to the level that he was hyped up big time this offseason. He has not played up to the level that we thought. Especially last week, he and Kirkpatrick were both victimized and just, did not look the same. And I mentioned this in one of my columns at Cincy Jungle. It's not a good thing when your defensive coordinator is preaching turnovers, turnovers, turnovers. You have 3 first-round corners as your 3 top corners on your team, and none of them through the first month of the season have an interception notched under their belt.
Yes, that's right. What you just said. 3 first-round corners. We played 4 games, and not one of them has an interception.
Yep, and you can't really win like that, and you can't. I mean, luckily the Bengals have found ways to do that, but you normally can't win like that, and that's definitely not the formula for success that the Bengals want on defense. Hopefully, Burfict's return and others' return will make things better, but. We have to see. John, I've got some other texts and calls to get to. I appreciate you calling in, sir. And who day, buddy? That was John from Kentucky, regular caller there. If you want to join in, either text or call 949-542-6241. Again, 949-542-6241. You can call or text. We've got a couple of texts coming in here. One is for you know what? We've got another call coming in, believe it or not. So let's try and get to that. This is the Orange and Black Insider. Who's this?
How you doing? It's Terrell.
What's going on, Terrell? I was actually just going to read one of your texts here. How you doing, buddy?
How you doing? Glad to see everybody. I was just saying like a quick kind of comment though. Basically, I was just to keep us on their sharp toes and everything. Maybe I'm there. I'm trying to come back. I just feel like it's kind of funny that he trying to come back and get warmed up for the Bengals so he can try to get a big bag coming next year. And also that the Bengals' attitude is getting stronger and stronger by the week, and I see no worries for this week. Not at all. I really don't. I'm not trying to be arrogant at all. I really don't feel no worries at all. And I just hope everyone have a good night, and thanks.
All right, thanks, Terrell. Appreciate you calling in, but I'll also get to your text here because I thought it was pretty interesting in just a second. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. As of this week, my thing is with this week against the Dolphins, kind of like what I said about the Carolina game. It wasn't so much that Carolina at every position had better players, had a better overall roster, better coach, whatever you want to call it. There's probably give and take to both, but you got to think of matchup issues, and you got to think of Bengals roster versus Dolphins roster guys. I thought Brian, when he was on earlier, I thought he brought up a very, very interesting situational matchup in terms of Xavier Howard and Minkah Fitzpatrick on AJ Green and Tyler Boyd. And, those are 2 good players. So it's going to be interesting to see how Andy Dalton, Bill Lazor, and company get those guys open and if they can make the big plays. Yes, AJ Green has done some things against the AFC South and AFC East teams and all of that. But if you look, he's had a spotty record sometimes against some of the top corners, but he's also made many top corners look silly. So I'm not so worried about AJ Green and him at least making plays. I am a little worried about Andy Dalton maybe force-feeding him a little bit now that Tyler Eifert's out. Maybe Tyler Boyd can't get the separation that's needed and or the protection that's needed to get those drag routes and everything to Tyler Boyd that he's been excelling on so far. So those are some things I worry about. I just continue to worry about the Bengals defense. I continue to worry, Ryan Tannehill, he is a pocket passer, but he's a guy who's got a very athletic background. I think, if I remember correctly, he was one of the guys that was like a wide receiver in college, and then he played 1 year at quarterback and all that kind of stuff. And so he can move around a bit. Cincinnati has done pretty well against him. They won the last game at least. We'll see, but yeah, I think this should be a game that the Bengals handle. Now, the other aspect to it is, are they overlooking this game because the Steelers are right around the corner, and that's where their focus may be? I don't think so. I think this team has shown some pretty good focus and has, like I said, shown that resiliency factor that we haven't seen out of too many Bengals teams lately. So we'll see, but this should be a game, and I think the Bengals win probably by a touchdown or so. Still pretty close, but maybe a bit more comfortable than the other. Maybe kind of like the Ravens game a little bit. Shoot out to a lead, maybe give it up a little bit, and then, it's still pretty comfortable throughout. But definitely I think it's more comfortable than the other two games. But we'll see. We'll see. That's why they play. And Miami, they got off to that 3-0 start, and who knows, maybe they're starting to play some teams that are better and some teams that are for real. We'll see. Getting another call here. Jason, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good. We're gonna win 28-14.
28-14. Okay, why? Why do you say that?
I think that the Miami Dolphins are too worried about jewelry right now. Like right now, it's like a night where they should be like paying attention to playbooks and whatnot. But they're too busy like going out to the clubs, having a good time. Cincinnati is not doing that right now. They got no more Netflix reruns to watch. It's time to play some football.
Well, I hope so. I mean, that would be a pretty convincing win, and put them at 4-1, and definitely in the driver's seat. I'm going to say this: that the AFC North is both tighter and not as tight of a race than you think. And I say that because Cleveland should be a 3-1 team at this point. I mean, if you really look at officiating and some poor kicking, and I mean, they're a couple plays away from being 3-1. Pittsburgh would then have another loss and be further down in the cellar. And then you've got Baltimore, who, aside from really the buzzsaw they hit in Cincinnati, they've been playing pretty well. They beat Pittsburgh. That's a tough game, regardless of if Pittsburgh is up or down. Pittsburgh would be up for that game in terms of emotion. So, I think if the Bengals do get this win at 4-1, they're in really good position to go forward and move. And one thing,
if we win this game, we have the momentum to beat Pittsburgh, and our biggest challenge will be going into Kansas City, because that quarterback, that kid's really, really good. So if we can get to Kansas City, it'll be just like it was in 2008 when we went in there and they were undefeated. That would be a big boom.
Yeah, and I
can get us to the playoffs.
Yeah, and for those who do not know, if you did not watch Monday Night Football, I didn't watch all of it, but I watched the fourth quarter, which is basically what, for the most part, mattered in that game. And Patrick Mahomes was making plays that I've seen maybe two other quarterbacks make in terms of things he would now. Again, we were talking about sustainability. We don't know how sustainable this, he is. He hasn't even played a full season of NFL football yet. In fact, I think he's only started like five games or something. So, obviously, very exciting player. Obviously, teams are trying to figure him out. I'm worried. I wrote a post on Cincy Jungle this week that I was worried about the scrambling and or quarterbacks that can make things happen in the pocket, outside of the pocket. They extend plays. Roethlisberger is one of them. Even Case Keenum is one of them. Mahomes is one of them. Cam Newton showed that he can do some things still on this Bengals defense that worry me. So Mahomes is definitely one to worry about. I think
he's like an NFL blitz quarterback.
Yeah.
It reminds me of all the losses I had on NFL blitz.
Yeah.
And you're right, Cam Newton. He's better at stretching out than anybody else. He's like Inspector Gadget. He can just get that extra 3 yards. And it's mind-numbing.
Well, the good news is that Cincinnati has, I'm trying to do the math here. They have 7 of their next 12 games at home, I believe, if I'm doing the math correctly. So, they started that. That's why getting off to that 3-1 start in the first month with those 3 road games was so important. I guess you can kind of say, well, how big of a road game is it going to Indianapolis? I mean, it's not travel-wise far, but, noise and all that kind of stuff, definitely a road game. But good points, Jason. Thanks for calling in, bud. We're gonna get you off the air, but thanks for listening.
All right, thank you for having me. Good day.
Thanks, buddy. That was regular listener Jason as well. Hearing from the regulars tonight. I love it. And that's the way it should be with this show, especially with the Bengals going 3-1. I'm going to get out of here in just a second. There was this text. We've got 2 texts I'm going to try and get to here. One, I guess this is a good one to go with because we were just talking about what the Bengals can do and what the Bengals have done so far in the first month of the season. I mean, again, this is kind of a weekly question, but not really. And unfortunately, I didn't get a name with who this was from, but it's from area code 206. Do you think the Bengals will be able to win the division? I think yes, and I'm gonna go back to this, and this is really funny to me, and this goes into exactly what the national media does and what they say, and certain people that are really big on the Bengals, certain people that are really down on the Bengals. There's a post on CincyJungle.com by Nick Manchester, one of the contributors there. And it's based on a column from Adam Shine, a guy from NFL Network and NFL.com. And Adam Shine has been incredibly, incredibly hard on the Bengals, never believes in them, all of that. And he says they are a top bandwagon to hop onto after a 3-1 start. You look at what basically the synopsis is: the Bengals are for real, folks. The offense is sensational. The defensive line is stout. But what happened in Sunday tells you a lot about the fabric and character of this roster. After watching the classy and popular Tyler Eifert suffer a gruesome season-ending injury, the Bengals didn't roll over. They were on the road against Matt Ryan, who was having a fabulous day. Yet Cincinnati, fresh off a Week 3 loss in Carolina, showed gumption. Gumption. Keep that one. That's gumption. And skill coming back to beat the Falcons in a 37-36 thriller. When Andy Dalton hit A.J. Green with a perfectly placed ball to score the winning touchdown with just 6 ticks left, something became clear. These are not your older brother's Bengals. This is a different Cincy team, one that can absolutely win the AFC North. Now, can they? Yes. And even Adam Shine says they can, yes. He even gives that subtle jab of these aren't your older brother's Bengals, that the ones that have fallen on their faces in postseason and all that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, it still has to be this, and I don't want it to be this way, but it's still, I would think for a lot of Bengals fans, it's still, yeah, you know what, this season's fun. They've shown us a lot. Primetime win already against a good divisional team in the Baltimore Ravens. This come-from-behind win on the road against an explosive offense in the Atlanta Falcons. Nice win initially to open the season against the Colts. They still got to prove it. I mean, I don't know how I don't want it to be that way, but I mean, I still feel like they still got to prove it. Now, they've proven they can win a division title. They've done that. And that's not what I mean by they need to prove it. I'm talking about obviously January, February. They need to prove that. And they won't have any more primetime games per se unless they get flexed into one late in the season. That Thursday night game was the only primetime game on the slate this year for them. So, you know, their next big game, big stage, wouldn't be until they win the division. Obviously, you know, they've got Steelers games and Ravens games and all of that coming up, but I think they can. I think they're definitely poised to, and I think right now they are playing probably the best football of anybody in the division. The Ravens are close, but the Bengals stomped the Ravens for most intents and purposes a couple of weeks ago. So, I think, I think they can win the North. I don't know if it's going to be a runaway 12-win type of thing, maybe 10 wins or something like that. But, hey, why not? But it's again more about after you get there, what do you do? And I hate saying that. I hate it. Trust me, I hate it. But that is what it is. And so far this team has shown a different gene, if you will, to be able to do things in the postseason that other teams maybe didn't show as much. But we'll see. Let's also get out of here. Even though he called in earlier, I wanted to get in. His call was more of a comment. This one is actually a question from Terrell. He notes the different attitude. Dalton's throwing on target. Basically, he wants to know, talking a little bit about John Ross. Does a tongue-in-cheek joke about, hey, do we want to trade him now that he actually showed some things this week? No. Keep him. Like I said last week, John Ross is a work in progress, and there's a lot of clay to mold there, and he showed quite a bit last week in just 2 catches. Unfortunately, that groin pull I guess he had against the Falcons on that touchdown catch is catching up with him this week. Maybe the Bengals are just resting him to get him out there, but you hate to see him go, polarizing weeks. Week 3, terrible, rake through the coals. Week 4, very nice rebound, great game. And then week 5, he doesn't play. You'd be like, it's a little frustrating. So hopefully he's able to suit up if he's healthy and go out there and do some things. Otherwise, the Bengals have Josh Malone. They've got Cody Core. They can do some other things. But I think now that you have Eifert out of the lineup, you really want to have as many skill position guys healthy as possible going forward. Can't afford to lose too many more of those now that Eifert's gone. And I think the Bengals need to be healthy on all fronts, even though Ross is kind of their 3-4 wide receiver, if you will. But the Bengals appear to be getting healthier. The Bengals probably will be getting most, if not all of these, most of these guys back as the season progresses and wears on when they need them. So that's a good thing. And hopefully the other tight ends step up in replacement for Tyler Eifert. This is the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. I'm Anthony Cosenza. My co-host John Sheeran joined us earlier. And we had Brian Catanzaro from the Finsider of the SB Nation Network to help us preview the Dolphins game coming up. Both teams are 3-1. And Dolphins aren't getting a lot of love around the nation. But, hey, they're 3-1. They're playing pretty decent football. So should be an interesting game this week. You can get this program on iTunes. You can get it on YouTube. You can get it on Art19. You can also get it on a variety of other platforms like Google Play, Stitcher. I think I said iTunes. I did say iTunes. And all of our stuff is on cincyjungle.com, so check that out. Apologize for an abrupt leaving from John and you getting basically me for most of the program, so hopefully you still enjoyed it regardless. And enjoy your time Sunday. Let's hope the Bengals get into the Steelers at 4-1. Let's hope Vontaze Burfict's presence is felt in a big way right away. Remember a couple of years ago when he was on, I believe, was it the suspension or was it when he was recovering from the knee issue against the Steelers? He came back and had a whale of a ball game and really was the reason why the Bengals won. I think that was 2015 maybe. So, he can come back. He can have an impact. We know this about him. So, but let's just hope for a good game, a win, a fun game, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. For John Sheeran, I'm Anthony Cosenza. Thanks for listening to the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. Thanks for your calls and texts. We'll see you next time.